Okay, class, I'm going to show you now how to do the final Photoshop step, which is to take your various, that shouldn't be there, take your various patterns, your various ties that you made, the different colorways, and bring them into a new document. So the first thing to do is create a new document. So you do File, New. I'm going to call it Pagoda Group because it will be all 4 of my colorways in one pattern. In one document, sorry. Make sure it's a 8.5 by 11. Since this is 8.5 by 11, that's a good size to start with. You can change the size of your document after you make it, but you can't change the resolution without messing up. So also make sure your resolution is 300 pixels per inch. I asked you to make this 300 pixels per inch because that's a good size resolution. Good resolution for getting detail. So this one has to also be 300. If you make this more or less than 300 pixels per inch, when you drag your copy and paste your ties over, they're going to be way too big or way too small, and it's going to get you very flustered and you won't know what to do next. So it's very important to check that this is 300 pixels per inch before you say OK. There I go, new document. I'm going to drag it aside so I can see both of my documents. I'll put it over here. So here's my ties. The first thing I need to do is I need to get my selection back up. Remember, I made the selections and I saved them. So I'll go up to Select, Load Selection. Which tie do I want to use? I'm going to use the realistic tie shape. I kind of like that one. I'll say OK, and there it is. So now, remember when you use this tool, any selection tool, what it'll do is it's going to drag the selection over. Well, now I no longer want to drag just the selection over. I want to drag the tie, the artwork that's within the selection. So in order to do that, I need this Move tool, the top tool in your toolbar. Click on it. Now you see when I'm over in the document, I get that little cross here. When I come inside my tie here, it will let me make sure all my layers are turned on, and let me start on my first layer. When I'm inside the document here, inside the tie shape, it's going to select that, and see I'm dragging it, drag and drop, same as copy and paste, put it into that document. Click to select this document again, turn that layer off, just like when I was making the differences in color. I'm going to do the same thing. Click here, drag this tie over. Whoops, now what did I do wrong there? I lost my selection. No, I didn't. Okay, so I'm in this layer. I'll click on here. Yeah, something went wrong. Something goes wrong, just Control Z and try it again. Don't let it fluster you. Now I'm going to come back here. I'm going to turn that one off, come to this layer, come over here, turn this eyeball off, come to my last layer, and drag that over. So now you see what I have are 4, whoops, well, it doesn't matter, I'm back in here, 4 ties all in the same document. They're not all where I want them to be, so I'm going to, see they each came in on a separate layer. Here is my light blue tie, so I'm going to move that where I want it to be. So I'm going to, the gold tie, I'm going to move that where I want it to be. Oops, it went behind there. Now, just like in Illustrator, if I want something to be on top of something, I just take it and drag it up in the layer menu, and that puts it on top. Let me see, this dark blue one. Or another way, another quick way to select a layer is if you're in the Move tool, if you hold down the command, I think it's Control on a PC, and click on that artwork, it'll automatically take you to that layer. Click on this one, takes me to this layer. So that's a little shortcut. You can click on the layer or hold the command key, Control, I believe. So this, I want this to be on top. So I'm going to drag it up. Then my last one is this one. And once again, I want it to be on top, so I'm going to drag it up. So there's my configuration, but you notice I kind of ran out of space down here. It's very easy to change the size of the document. There's 2 ways you can do it. One way is to go up to Image, Canvas Size. This is called the canvas, the document that you're seeing. So under Canvas Size, it's 8.5 by 11, and then it asks you what size do you want it to be. Well, let me see. I probably need, maybe like 2 more inches. So I'm going to say 13 inches there. And this lets you, like, where do you want to add the extra space? Right now it's going to add it equally all the way around. If I take my document and click it at the top, it's going to add my extra space at the bottom, which is what I'd like it to be. Make sure the canvas extension color is what you want it to be. Right now it says background, which is white. That's what I want. So I'll say OK, and there it is. Let me do Control 0 to kind of get the whole thing on the screen. Now the other way that you can change the document size, which might be easier, is you can use the cropping tool. The cropping tool is this guy here. If you click on it, you get, see this little, you get the marching ants, but you also get these little handles. All you do is drag a handle and it changes the size of your document. I recommend that you kind of bring it in close to your tie so that you don't have a lot of extra document, because first of all, it saves storage space. But secondly, if you have a white background and you want it, and it's too big, it can overlap other things, and then you can have a problem with doing your layout in Illustrator once you bring, because you're going to bring this document into Illustrator. Once you have it cropped where you want, hit return, and that's it. You can also, if you make it too small accidentally, the stuff is still out there, you just don't see it. So you could, oops, no, actually it wasn't. So, so you can't do it after you crop, but originally when you bring them in, edit, oh, I have to go with this. Oh, it won't let me do it while I'm still in the crop tool, so crop. So let me bring it back to first crop, okay. This is called the history menu. If you need to go back more than one step, or it won't let you go back here, if you bring out this history menu, which you can also find up here under window, it lets you go back one step at a time in the order that you've done it. It keeps your history here, maybe 20 steps or so. So that's another way to go backwards, since you can't go back as easily as you can in Illustrator. So now I have all 4 of my colorways in one document. I'm going to save this document because this is the document that I'm going to be bringing into Illustrator to do my final layout. This is as though you hired a photographer and he laid your ties on the table and took a photograph, and this is the photograph you're having in your catalog page. Once again, it'll save as a PSD because it has layers. So I'm just going to say save. It already exists, but I did it once before because I had to redo the layout because my computer, well, we lost electric and my computer went down. So I say replace it, and I'll say OK. And there it is. Now, some of you might have ties that perhaps have colors that bleed into each other. Like say the background color is the same and you can't distinguish the shapes, or maybe it has white and it blends into the white background. There's several things you can do, effects you can use that will make your ties stand apart. So let me show you what they are. And the effects will work on the layer you're in. So right now I'm in this top layer. So if I go into, I'm going to just be in the move tool because I want to make sure. If I go into filter, let me see. And actually I'm going to go into layer style. Here's some effects: bevel and emboss, stroke, inner shadow, outer shadow. Let me do a drop shadow. Any one of these, usually you're going to get a menu up, and then you can actually pick the other ones from the menu. So this lets you affect it, change, modify what you're doing in the effect. You can see here I have just a very, very small drop shadow. You can multiply the mode, it's a black shadow. The opacity is 75%. I can move it a little bit further away so you can see it more, see how it moves away. I can make it spread out. I don't like that as much. I can make the size bigger, which kind of blurs it. So you see what that does is it kind of also makes it stand off. Maybe this is the angle. Maybe I want the shadow to be on that side. So now you can see it really looks 3D, like it's standing off at that other tie. So I'll say OK, and that makes a nice effect. Of course, you want the same effect to be on your other ties. You could, click on this and do effects, do layer style again. Let me show you layer style and do effects again. But then you'd have to make sure you have all the numbers the same and the angles the same. Another thing you can do, which is very easy, is just take the effects here, hold down its option in a Mac. It might be, I don't know if you have an option key, it might be alternate on a PC. And then that will actually drag that same effect. I mean, if you just drag it without holding the key down, it just moves it and takes it off the other layer. But if I hold my option key down, I'm pretty sure it's alternate in the PC, it will then put it on the other layers too. So there they are. It's all, so now I have this drop shadow effect. Another effect would be stroke. Perhaps I want to do a stroke on it. So I can do layer style. Let's say I want to do, and you can do more than one at the same time. So I want to do a stroke. I could actually not do I can take the drop shadow off and just put the stroke on. Or I can do both. I can leave the drop shadow on and leave the stroke on and really give it a sharp outline. So it's up to you. And you can, of course, change the width of the stroke. Ooh, that's a little crazy. put it outside, put it inside, in center of the edge. You can blend it normally, the opacity, make it lighter, you know, gray stroke. So there's many, many different things you can do. I'm going to cancel the strokes. I think the drop shadow is plenty for this. But it's up to you. You can do any one of those. You can bevel and emboss, make the ties look 3D. So you can play with those effects. They can be fun. The other thing I wanted to tell you is that, see, right now you have this white background. We're going to save this as a PSD file, which is going to include all the layers, including the white background. But you'll notice the white background's on a separate layer here. I can turn that off. See that little checkerboard? What that means is no background or transparent. So it's transparent there. So this is a nice thing to do if, say, perhaps the background of your layout's going to be a color and you don't want that white box around these. You can do no background. If you save it that way, it'll be transparent and come in right on top of your color, and you'll see the color right up to the edge of the ties. So that's all you do. This is, now I'm going to save this. I did already. I'm going to save it with, I think I didn't save it with the effect on. So I'll save it. So now this is like my picture that I'm going to bring into Illustrator. So you do the same thing with all 4 of your patterns. You'll have a collection of one document with the 4 different colorways of the same pattern. So you'll end up with 4 documents, one for each of your patterns that's this way. And you don't have to line up the ties like this. In fact, let me show you quickly one other thing. Sometimes if you might want to have like just the main color be large, and then maybe have your other colors be just small to show different colors. That's easy enough to do. Let me see, this is my main color, so I'll leave that one large. I'll move to this gold one. If I want to make that a smaller tie, I need the bounding box and the handles like you're familiar with in Illustrator. So what I'm going to do is edit, transform, scale, or just edit transform, free transform. I get the handle. I just can hold down my shift key and I can reduce my tie. So maybe what I want to do is have one large tie and then just the 4 smaller ties, and have to hit enter, and have the 4 smaller ties next to it showing the different colorways. So you can see the pattern big and the colorways small. That's fine too. You're free to do, and the shortcut for edit transform is Control or Command T. There's my handles. You're free to do these however you want to do them. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to first move this up to be level with that tie so I know when it's the same size. Hold down my shift key, and there I go. Same size. Enter. And I'll do the same thing with my last one. Command T or Control T, or edit transform. Line it up. Grab a corner, hold the shift key, and bring it down. There we go. Enter. So now I can maybe just have these kind of like this sitting next to it. Once again, if I hold the Command key, click on that, it'll move to that layer. I think I'm going to not overlap them this time. Yeah, so maybe that's the configuration you want to use. It's entirely up to you, because if you did this configuration, then when you bring it into Illustrator, maybe your text about the ties could fall right in here. So it's entirely up to you. You should have in your mind what kind of layout you want to do for your Illustrator file before you start this, and then you can decide. But if you save it as a layered file, you can also, once you bring them into Illustrator, if you don't like how your little grouping looks, you can come back into Photoshop and change the layout of it, and then update it in Illustrator. I'll show you that when we get to the Illustrator file. So this is the last step in Photoshop. From here on out, you'll be working in Illustrator to finish your final layout.